Hi everyone, welcome to Creating Content from Home. My name is Luchia Dragosh. I'm a supervising producer at Queen's Public Television. With me are two of my colleagues, Noran and Mark. We also have Christina with us live. She'll be collecting your questions from our Facebook live feed. Today's topic, as the title suggests, is creating content from home. And my colleagues and I will be sharing our personal experience with staying creative from home during these difficult times. I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves briefly and then we can start. So Mark, please take it away.
Hey everybody, my name is Mark Bacino. I'm a producer of new media and audio content for QPTV. So what does that mean? That means I produce video promos of our original content, the shows that, the great shows that Luchia and Noran make. So I make promos out of them. Then I also look after the production of QPTV radio and also the production of QPTV original podcasts.
Hi everyone, I am Noran and Omar. I am a video journalist, producer, and a filmer in QPTV. So we host a couple of shows and basically producing a couple of shows, and it's very exciting. We have First Generation, Power Youth, and so many other shows if you guys are fans. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So passing it on to you, Luchia.
Great, so before we start, let's do a little housekeeping. We are going to be live from 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. on our channel, QPTV channel 1, and also on our Facebook page and on our website, qptv.org. After 1:30, we'll continue to answer any questions that you have on our Facebook page. So make sure you join the Facebook page and type in the comments, hi, where you're from, so Christina can greet you, and also type any questions that you have during the show. And at 1:30, we'll start answering them on the Facebook page. So let's get started. My first question would be, how has the transition from working in the office to work from home situation due to the COVID crisis affected you and your ability to perform your QPTV responsibilities? So Mark, can you answer that first?
Sure. Like I said before, I kind of do 3 different things for QPTV. So it's interesting to me because the first thing that I do, like I said, creating promos for the original content, that's fun, funnily enough, that's not really changed that much because of the technology and the way we work. So generally speaking, I would get content from you guys and I would edit locally on my local machine, my computer, and then I would send the finished product back up onto the web and we would show it on social media and the channel. So that hasn't changed that much, thankfully. But what has changed for me in particular, since shifting work home, has been QPTV radio and the QPTV podcast. You know, that working from home has sort of posed a bunch of challenges in that regard for those 2 things that we do. So, for instance, QPTV radio, I do a lot of voiceovers with voice talent. And it's like, wow, how am I going to record voice talent? They're not going to be in the room. How am I going to do this? How are we going to, for the podcast, how are we going to interview guests? They're not going to be in the room. We don't have that give and take. We can do it remotely, like a lot of people are doing, like we're doing right now. But, podcasts are all about audio too. So how are we going to make it sound good, make it sound professional? And those kind of, how am I going to record myself at the same time? So all these sort of issues have presented themselves. And I started to have to be a little creative in terms of my workarounds, how am I going to do this stuff? So I could just give folks one example, not trying to be too technical, but for instance, with QPTV radio and us recording voice talent, what I did is I spoke to our announcer, and thankfully he had a little setup at home. It's like trying to figure out what can you use, so he had a little setup at home, computer set up, and he had a mic. Wasn't that great. you know, not like super professional sounding, but we were like, hey, let's give it a shot. So he recorded some stuff and sent it to me via the web. And then I listened to it and I was like, okay, maybe I can do something with this. It's not as it would be if we recorded it in the studio. It didn't sound as professional, I would say, but I then started to work on it with my tools, you know, with my audio tools, and within the mix, I started to play with it and figured out a way that I could, you know, EQ it and set it up so that I got it pretty close to what sounds to my ear professional and what matched into what we were already doing. So you could put something that we did 6 months ago up against that, and it sounded pretty similar. So it's sort of, you know, that was one workaround to just sort of jump in and do it and see if I could manipulate it to make it sound professional, and it worked out. So it just was a little bit of creative thinking and a little bit of work, and that's, you know, that's it.
Great. What about you, Noran?
So the idea of adapting to a new environment is what comes to mind when I was thinking about how we were doing this COVID situation, right? So, you know, we are put in this situation to develop new skills in a point. So I figured out that we were able to develop skills that we didn't know was there before. For example, how to do work and life balance, right? So that was an issue that a lot of people don't speak about, and it is a challenge that we have, balancing work and life. But I felt like COVID actually pushed us to like develop these skills and to be more professional of it, right? So in the beginning, it was pretty challenges, but when you have a great team who wants to push and motivate you to do your best, then you're able to succeed in what you do. So for example, for our team, we were very organized in the sense that we had a plan of like pre-production, production, and post-production, right? So we already had an organized plan of what was going to happen these upcoming months, right? So what we were able to do is we took that same strategy, what we did, communicated with each other, and then we were still able to continue that. So we were developing new skills, in my opinion, right? So how to communicate with one another, how to create the best content just from home, and how to remotely work. Also, it's a process. So I figure like our type of work is more of production, and that for me, that I see that as a work of art, right? So it's a process, it's a progress through the time. As time passed since March until now, we are able to advance in our skill of how to work from home. We were able to, you know, figure out what is the best time for us to meet, what was the best time for us, you know, to speak to one another, what was more important for us to categorize what was supposed to be done first, what was supposed to be done second. We were able to manage our time. So of course it was challenging, but at the same time, we were able to push our abilities to push further than what we imagined we can do, you know? So these are skills that I feel like it pushed us to do what we wanted to do, you know? So this COVID situation was actually a blessing in disguise, in my opinion, because I was able to see what I am capable of doing and what my team is capable of doing and what we were all capable of pushing each other. And honestly, it showed what kind of support system we had that, of course, we knew we had, but it just showed us even more, not only through work, but also through caring, also through pushing one another to support one another. And I felt like these are skills that every team and every work should have. And COVID really pushed us to figure out that this is what we have, and we're grateful to have this kind of thing.
So would you say it brought us more together as a team, because you and I and Christina are from the same department?
Right. And honestly, it takes a great leader like yourself, Luchia, to push us to do that.
Thank you.
No, honestly, like you were able to manage us and to keep the workflow going. We did not feel lost. And you were able, as like, you know,
well, that also goes for Dan as a leader to QPTV, exactly. And you know, it passes it.
For sure.
It just sort of spills down to the
yeah, exactly. Exactly what you mentioned. Dan had the great skill of always keeping us connected via email, via Zoom meetings, to celebrate each other, to give us the recognition that we need. So I felt like this COVID actually brought us together in a sense, and it was a blessing in disguise. But what do you think?
Great. So did you just ask a question, or should I jump in and answer from my perspective?
I was saying, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, for me, definitely, I feel like it brought us together, and maybe I can talk about more after the second question. But yeah, I feel like well, which brings me, let me just go ahead and answer from my perspective, because that's one of the points. My fear in the beginning was that we're sort of gonna get lost in the department, because as you know, when we go to work, we brainstorm a lot of ideas with each other. When we're face to face, you come up, oh, you see what I read, let's do this, and all that. And my fear was that we're gonna lose that. How are we gonna brainstorm? How am I gonna draw an inspiration? How are we gonna communicate with each other? But actually, I think in the beginning, I found what works for me and what sort of works for us as a team. So I know, for example, with Christina, I can communicate on emails. With you, it's more Instagram, DMs, and then if it's something longer, I'll just tell you, okay, check your email. I send you an email. So it's just knowing your team and finding what works for your team. As far as other challenges, one was that we used to do documentaries in our department. So it's more visually cinematic sort of stories. And when we got at home, with COVID, with the pandemic, it was just, well, how am I'm gonna do documentaries, not a new style, but more cinematic. And it took me a while to figure it out. Okay, I should be using Zoom, but how can I make this work for us? And the key thing for me was not to wait for create this perfect format, but to just jump in, do one interview, and then I had, I'll go a little technical, but I had my Zoom set up, and then I had a separate camera recording me as a second camera. So I have a cutaway, and then use a lot of B-roll on top. And it's just experimenting with these formats when you're not sure if it's gonna work or if not. But don't, like I said to myself, don't be afraid. Just don't be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do it and see what will happen, and then how I can improve on things and what things work and what not. So that was my biggest, and of course the equipment, slowly. I didn't have the perfect camera in the beginning. The microphone didn't work for one of the shoots on the computer, but I just said, you know what, let me just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be done. So that, I would say, was my biggest challenge, and those were the things that worked for me.
That's a good takeaway too, because it's, I think for folks who are waiting to, for the perfect thing to sort of start any kind of creative endeavor. I mean, there's never a perfect time,
No.
So you might as well just jump in, regardless, whether you're in the situation that we're in now or any other time. It's just, you want to do something creative, just start.
Do it. Yes. So just a quick reminder, we are, for people who are joining now, we are live on our channels until 1:30. From then on, and we're also on our website, qptv.org, and on our Facebook page. But from 1:30 on, we'll stop streaming on the channel, and we'll continue on the website and on Facebook page. So if you have any questions, we'll be answering them live on Facebook. So just go into the Facebook page, type in your question, and Christina will send that to us, and we'll be answering them at 1:30. So my next question would be, how have you stayed productive, creative, and inspired during these times? Because that might be challenging at home. And I know, especially for Nora, she had school, not only in terms of creating content for QPTV, but also in the personal side. So Nora, how was that for you?
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I loved it, because I felt like the freedom of being creative was given to me. I was able to use what was available to me to create creativity, so to create a studio at home using just like a blanket sheet, and the lights of your 2 different phones as like lights for you, and seeing the things that you have available to create the best quality you could. But also what I really liked was the idea that we came up with the idea of being locked down at home, yet what is it that we can do? What is a creative story that we can do? What is something exciting that we can do? Because this is something that never happened to us before, you know, this is a new experience, and that deserves to be recognized, right? So Luchia, if you recall, we actually came up with the idea of Ramadan, you know, filming it in quarantine, you know, and they were simple videos where I was just like, it's as if like I'm vlogging, but I'm not, because this is an event that not a lot of Muslims from the generations in the past have dealt with, you know? So how is it that, you know, this such important event that we wait all year long to celebrate with family and to give back charity and always to be outside, yet we're in lockdown? And that was something that needed to be documented. We used the equipment, we communicated, and we were able to make it as creative as possible. You know, like you said, the equipment sometimes not working, the equipment sometimes working, and, you know, just using our phones. It's just being creative and taking advantage of what we have in our fingertips, you know? So also the creativity of having that freedom of thinking, what could I do now, and putting it to the spot. So for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, there were so many events that have been happening in Queens, you know, and just by me having that access through my phone and on Instagram, seeing where these events are, I am able to get out there, wear my mask, and to go shoot it, you know, to get as footage for it, you know, just because I have that flexibility of, you know, managing my time, I'm able to manage what could I do now and what could I do later that will be just as equivalent. Like right now I could be editing, right? And I could be doing like a studio at home with like a cool bed sheet, you know, taking photos, videos, you know, and interviewing people. But at the same time, I'm able to take a break, step out, go to the movement, go to the protest, see what's happening out there and document that, because there's so much that's happening. Yet because we have this freedom of managing our time, I'm able to get more done than it would be in an office space, because in an office space, I would be sitting down, editing, focusing on one thing. And I get that some people need that. But I guess for me, even with school and managing and all that, I'm more of like multitasking type of person. I like to keep that excitement, that momentum. And for me, that was something really exciting for me.
You like to break up things, a little from this, a little from that.
Exactly. To
And
keep
some people like to work on one thing for long periods of time.
Exactly.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, I think those are great points that Noran made. And for me, I mean, the creativity between and the inspiration for whether it's for me personally or work, it's sort of the same. It's not much of a difference there. You know, I guess for me, I'm sort of finding inspiration as I normally would from listening to music. I'm a musician as well, so I love to listen to great music, and you know, listening to a really interesting podcast, or watching a great film, or you know, reading a book, or even, you know, something silly like a tutorial video on YouTube or something like that. I mean, all these are sources of inspiration for me, you know, generally speaking.
Yeah, so for me, I'm sort of a workaholic, so I blend work and life. The lines are kind of blurry in there.
Right.
So like you, I draw. It's just when I'm at home, I'm thinking about work or what shows, what content we can create. So it was it was not that difficult from idea standpoint, what ideas, what shows to do. But it was more, I saw very challenging that some people would, when I contact them to do an interview, it would take them longer to respond, or they would not want to do it right now because they're overwhelmed, because with the kids being at home, a lot of people are parents, and it was just hard for them. So an example, we have a freelancer who freelances with us, Andrew, and he came up to me with an idea that we might do immigrants, how they cook at home, and dishes from around the world. So I reached out because I have a few friends who are from Europe, and they all said absolutely not, because the kids, they have small kids, they're at home, and it just, they couldn't find that balance. So for me to interview them, it would have been, a huge imposition for them. That was work-wise. Personally, for me, it was, the challenging part was that my son is at home, he's a 5th grader, so I have to keep track of his assignments, and then my work, and then draw inspiration yeah, maybe from that to do a show, but also, you know, I had to be a parent and then come to my computer and be a creator and employee and supervisor. So it was just challenging in the beginning. And now, you know, the schools will be out next week, but from then on it's summer. So what do you do with a fifth grader at home? You know, that would be another thing to figure it out. So those are all things. I don't have the perfect formula. What worked for me is be more scheduled. So let's say in the morning we get up, we go for a run, we come back, then we do 2 hours of work, then we take a break, play with, you know, play Lego or whatever, and then again work. So we split up the day. That works for me. I'm not sure for other people, but like Noran, I like to work on a few different things throughout the day. So I like to take a lot of breaks in between. In the office, I'm not like that. In the office, I can
Like
sit
more,
and work for long periods
right,
of time.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But at home, I have to take breaks. And like Noran said, you know, just go outside. Like I take a break, I go outside and then see something, see a flyer, see somebody is doing something, and then I have an idea, oh, we might do this, we might do that. So it's just
Right.
more inspiration than from the office. From the office, it's more searching online or
Right.
watching TV, the
Right.
news, and yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was for me. Again, quick reminder, we have 10 more minutes on the channel, and then we're on Facebook Live. We are already on Facebook Live, but at 1:30 we'll start answering any questions that you might have. So let me go to my third question, because we have 10 more minutes, 9 more minutes. What do you see the future of the work experience post-COVID-19? How has this crisis changed the way you approach work? And if we go, when we go back to the office, what would you do differently?
Well,
Mark?
for me, I think, I guess I would hope that we could return to some, you know, semblance of normalcy at some point. What that timeline is going to be, obviously none of us really know. Because I think there are some good aspects to being, you know, that immediacy of being together. But at the same time, just like all you guys were saying, like Noran was saying, it would be silly if we didn't get some sort of positive or semi-positive takeaway from this sort of horrific, tragic experience. You know, for me, it's like, I just look at it like, what could I take away from it? Well, you know, we had a lot of limitations, and limitations are generally looked upon as being sort of a negative thing. But you can also kind of spin it to be maybe a bit of a positive thing, in that, well, these limitations pushed me to be more creative, to look at things in a fresh way, to, you know, look at fresh solutions to problems that, you know, maybe I'd never looked at it that way before. And I hope that, you know, maybe we can, once you learn those things, you can't unlearn them. So, you know, I think ultimately you take that away and that becomes part of your skill set going forward. So I feel like if there's a positive thing, that's, for me, you know, limitation is not the worst thing.
Great. Noran?
I love what you said, especially about the solutions. Like, we figured out new solutions for situations, and definitely I feel like this is the new face of all kind of workforce, not just journalism, not just production. I feel like this is the new way of life, and we were able to adapt, like you stated, new skills to develop creative work, and we were able to be more as a support team, as we mentioned. And I feel like this is something that we will forever carry on and figure out how to do the work balance and figure out what it's like to remotely work and what it's like to spark up your creativity and to continue doing that. You know, staying at home doesn't mean that you are now, that's it, it's shut down, you're just staying home, you're relaxing. Actually, it's more work, but at the same time, it's the best kind of work you can do because you're giving it your full momentum. You're giving it all your attention to give it the best product because you are trying to be as creative as possible. And I feel like this is something great for, you know, moving forward, because in my opinion, there was more positives that came out of it than you know, it was a blessing in disguise, as I stated. It brought us all together. Thanks to Dan again for, you know, bringing the whole team. We're all emailing each other, sharing experiences. We're still together, you know, and great thanks to our team. We're still following schedule. We're motivating each other. And yeah, it's a blessing.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I know a lot of people are hurting right now, and the unemployment and it just the mental toll and the financial toll on people. But there's always, like you said, to try to find the positive in everything. And I think a lot of people, especially for me, it was time for reflection, and reflection not only of my daily life, but my life as a whole, as a person. And to just see, okay, what could I take away from this and what I can do differently in my life moving forward. And one thing is, yes, definitely slow down and regularly reflect on where am I going? Am I on the right direction? Because I feel like before that, everything was go, 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 work, and then home with my son, and then doing homeworks and things. And it went on and on so fast. And we did a lot of great work, for which I'm very proud. And I take it as a personal responsibility, you know, my work at QPTV, telling these stories from Queens that are so important. But moving forward, probably I would be doing documentaries, but also I still want to continue with something like that live, because I think this format is amazing. And I was refusing it for a long time, the look, and I wanted this cinematic look. But I think now being live and being able to build that community around, especially on Facebook and on social media, I think it's a blessing, and to be more connected with one another. So format like that, I think it will give us that opportunity. And as far as my duties, how would I do it differently? I think when we go back to the office, I'll probably take often a little breaks and go out and just do a little differently. I will do things. I'll try still to draw more inspiration from the outside world rather than staying long hours on the computer. And
Right.
yeah, that would be
it's,
for me.
it's great. It's great advice for sure.
What is one thing that you want to do so much when you go back to the office? Quickly, we have 4 minutes.
Oh, go ahead, Noran. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
For me, it's just good to have the interaction between people personally, you know, just one-on-one in person, I should say, you know, because I think that's something that you can't replace, you know.
Yes.
So for me, that's nice, just to, you know, see you guys in the hall and be like, hey, what's up? How are you guys doing? You know, that kind of thing. So, you know, I think that'll be good to get back to that.
Can I jump in just so I don't forget? But you see, one positive thing also that came out, probably if we were in the office, we would not do a show like that. Especially you, Mark, you're in a different department. We're in a different floors.
Different part of the building.
3 floors between us. Yes.
Right.
Rarely see each other in the office.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a great example of how something like that brought us together. But Noran, yes, one thing that you would want to do.
Definitely, I love bumping into people and hearing what they're working on. That also sparks creativity, like, and support, like, to figure out what are they working on. Ooh, that's exciting. I want to see a sneak peek, and, you know, just to motivate one another. I felt like that was really something, and just bumping into people, just like Mark said. But I love the idea of that we are all separated, so it's hard for us always to work.
And many times we didn't know what the other person does. Now I know what Antonio does more because Antonio, you see that now we're behind the scenes more, and we understand what is the technical aspects behind. One thing that I want to do is, well, that's Dan has to do, but maybe have a pizza lunch and get all of us together.
Right.
And or maybe do a lunch with the quarantine-inspired food, some new recipe that we all learned. Because I've been cooking a lot.
And I could teach everyone a TikTok dance, because that's also where creativity starts.
I'm not on TikTok. I should be there probably. But yes, a lunch that we can all get together. And I feel like it will be different than it was before the quarantine. I think now we would appreciate more each other, not only in the company, but I think worldwide. I think people appreciate more what we have,
Sure.
right?
Definitely.
So we have 1 minute left. I just want to thank for all our viewers again. We have few questions that Christina just messaged to me. We will continue on the Facebook Live and we'll be answering those questions. So for the rest of you that are watching on the channel, bye from me.
Thank you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
And we're continuing on the Facebook Live. So the first question is, okay, how are you maintaining your health and wellness during these challenging times? For me, I used to do a lot of meditation and yoga, but since the quarantine started, I noticed that I had to do a lot more from that. So I do every night meditation with my son. I do yoga every day. I go for a run, which I'd never done before. Usually I would go on my lunch break at the gym, and just exercise a little, but I've never ran outside. So that's a great way to see all the people and just fresh air. And it really takes away my worries when I run. So it's a really good way to decompress. And at nighttime, we have walks with my son. We walk and we just talk about the day. And I listen to him on and on how he plays Minecraft, which I know nothing of. But those are the two major things, three, that keep me sane. Yeah, and I read when I have time to. Of course, binge watch Netflix, but yeah. What about you guys?
Noran?
Oh, sure. So similar to meditation, I do journaling. Like I journal everything that I'm feeling, everything that I want to create, you know, manifesting also meditation, that also plays a huge role. Also like meditation, praying, that also plays a role. And just walks, you know, taking a walk in the park, even though everybody has masks on, it's just great to see fresh faces and everybody's, you know, in a good spirit of being outside, just enjoying the sunlight, or sitting outside in a porch, like just having that good energy and that sunshine, you know, that does help. But also, I know this is going to sound a little too youngy or whatever, but TikToks, dancing, that plays a huge role. I don't know. I felt like that is some way for me to escape, you know, reality, see what everyone's up to on TikTok and, you know, Instagram and all that. So, yeah. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, you don't want to see me dance on TikTok. I didn't want that. But for me, my whole thing is sort of like a combination of both what you guys are saying. I've been, I try to run even before, I mean, I've always done this. I try to run like 3 to 4 times a week. So that's like a total, you know, de-stressor. I've come to like totally need that. So, you know, just that's mentally and physically, I feel like that helps a lot. And then, yeah, definitely taking breaks and going outside and taking a walk. You know, taking walks with my wife and my son, and we just, you know, go out and, you know, like you said, get sunshine, get some fresh air, see some people, and just, you know, try to stay mentally sane that way, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So second question, James Faber asked, when work goes back to normal, what have you learned working under these circumstances that you can apply in the office or on the field? For me, it's seeing more, I think I would see more my colleagues as people, humans, and let me explain that. But during this time, it just allowed me to see we're all on this together. We all have problems at home. We're not just employees of the company, but we all have things at home. And we should be more tolerant and accepting and understanding of each other, because we're all in this together. And you don't know how the colleague that is sitting next to you, what his life is, what is he going through. So not only in the office, but also for everyone, a lot of families and a lot of people are hurting right now. So I think just in general, be more open to just the understanding of we're all humans. We all have issues. Nobody's life is perfect, and just be more understanding. As a technical side, I mean, like I said, I would continue probably do something like Zoom, like live, and incorporate that in the workflow. That will be something that I'll take away from the quarantine. Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, I think those are good points for sure. I mean, yeah, you never really know what people are going through that you're working with. You know, you could be sitting, like you said, side by side, and you're not really sure. I think this has sort of made us all, a little more mindful of each other, the world at large, how we're all sort of connected, and affect each other. What one person does is affecting someone else. So I think that's a good takeaway. Like you said, for me, I guess just technically speaking, sort of what I said earlier, I feel like now I'm starting to get the sense that, to be more open-minded to different solutions, to just not go for the, stock solution to a problem. That, this has sort of forced us to be creative in solving problems in different ways. So why limit that to doing that at home? Why not bring that mindset back to the office, and sort of, think along those lines, like, hey, how can we do this differently? And it sort of falls into that, creativity side of things too. Like, how can we make this a little different, or, that kind of thing. Noran?
Yeah, with both of you, you guys really had amazing points. It's just also genuinely asking someone, how are you? Just like within your heart, how are you actually doing? And besides work-wise, like, how is your mental health? How did you cope with everything? Are you okay? I feel like these are questions that need to be asked, especially for people you care about and anyone you're walking in the street, because it's just nobody really shares how they're actually doing, and that's really important. But also what you mentioned earlier, Luchia, is just not waiting for everything to be perfect. Just go for it. Be as creative and as open-minded as you can be, and see what you can produce out of that. I feel like that's also an important skill that we should continue on doing, because I know we're very perfectionists. We want to make sure everything's edited perfect. I feel like we need to free ourselves to, explore that.
And just tell the story.
Yeah.
So the next question is, the pandemic coupled with the digital revolution has radically altered what we used to call the work-life balance. Has it happened for our participants? To what degree? What do they anticipate after we have some sort of return? I mean, like I said in one of my answers, if I understood the question correctly, for me, it's more, I decided to be more reflective in general, my life and the things I do. So the shows that I produce, how are they important? Are they important? Do they bring the message that it's really important to the Queens community? And do more, even though we all have done hyper-local content, but maybe be more mindful, okay, which content can help which community. So be more selective of the shows that we produce. And even though we do favor quality over quantity, but I would say even maybe more having social message, limit that to the shows that we produce. And then be more mindful in general with the work-life balance, making sure that I have more time for myself. That's for absolutely sure that, yes, I need time for myself, which sometimes during, before the quarantine, it just didn't happen very often. But now I know that I must have time for myself. So yeah, that's probably for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Noran?
Yeah, I definitely agree about, giving yourself that time to relax. I feel like when you're so passionate about what you do, you forget to tend to all right, I love what I'm doing. This is like a hobby, but at the same time, it is a job. And, to prepare yourself mentally and to be in a good state, that's how you're going to produce the best work. So that's very important. Also, creating, producing projects for the community. So definitely we should I feel like we should be more aware of what does the community need, what kind of coverage do they want to see, what is it that they are curious about, what is it that they want us to produce and to feel as if that we're listening, and we want to listen to our community. And I feel like that's even QPTV's motto, like we're listening to you guys and we want to produce what is best for you guys. So I feel like that's also creating the best for the community and covering important events.
Because now probably it will be very different what stories the community needs, what, like you said, yes, asking those questions, because yes, their needs are changed now, right? Mark, you?
Sure. Yeah, I think you guys touched on it with balance is the key, I think, you know, and like Noran said, it's like, we would probably be doing this stuff if it wasn't our job, because we're just creative people. So we're doing all kinds of different creative projects, you know. And so when you look at it that way, I find it even now with the quarantine at home and at the office, it's like, you got to sort of have the sort of boundaries, I think, to maybe it's healthy to set for yourself. Because I know sometimes, and I'm sure we all, you know, we're at work and it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and you're like, oh, you're into doing your edit or whatever you're doing, and you're like, I'm just going to do one more thing. And I'm going to do one more thing. And then you turn around and you're like, wow, I should go home, you know? And I found that to be the case, because if you don't refresh yourself, then like Noran said, you're not going to do your best work. So I find that too, even in quarantine, you know, like I'm working on something and I'm like, oh, it's 11 o'clock, you know, oh, maybe I should stop now, you know, and chill out. So I think it's a good thing to sort of be mindful of the balance, you know. I think that makes sense.
Oh, great. So one last question. How do you handle social distancing with guest interviews going forward? I think we have to put together maybe a list of things that we will do. I feel like a lot of people will be reluctant to give an in-person interview for a while. So making sure that they know that we are mindful of that, or we're taking the precautions, that will be key. So explaining to them, we'll stay 6 feet apart, or we'll have a smaller crew, not so much equipment, not so much time to hang out there and set up, or bring the things, maybe afterwards clean up. I think that might be one way of doing things. And again, until then, continue to interview them over Zoom. But I think a lot of people will be reluctant. I see that's happening a lot. I contacted a lot of people, and some of them are just, you know, they cannot give me a date or anything right now, so it's all Zoom. Yeah, what do you think,
Mark?
I think we have to just keep people informed of you know, what we're doing. I guess once we're in that situation where we can be doing things in person, that we're, you know, doing everything as safely as we can. You know, again, thinking sort of outside of the box. I hate that expression because it's so overused, but you know, like maybe we could interview people outside. You know, that would be maybe make people feel safer if they're outside, you know, in the open air. That could be a thing. And, you know, just, you know, I hear, you know, our CEO, Dan Leone, is preparing the facility, from what I've heard, to, you know, be safer for not only for us as employees, but also as for our guests, because we get a lot of outside producers that come in all the time to do their work. So, you know, he's installing, I've heard, like UV lights and things of that nature that can help to keep us safer. And you know, so I think if people who are coming into that situation know that we're taking these extra steps, you know, to make people, you know, safer, then they'll feel more comfortable. But it's going to take time, I think, like you said.
Yeah, yeah.
Noran?
Anything that you want to add? Oh, Noran didn't respond, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a creative way. I don't know, just a creative way if people are willing to be interviewed. I saw a lot of people even speaking with their masks on, you know, that could continue working. But also, you know, maybe it's the way we angle the cameras. Maybe we could be 6 feet apart, but there's like camera 1 on this person and camera 2 on this person, and like, you know, just creative shots that we can do. But it's definitely going to be a process. Definitely not a lot of people are going to be like, all right, we're ready now. So the Zoom, you know, like you said, being open to create these not so perfect, you know, ideas. So yeah, so it's going to be a process.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone wants to add anything? We don't have any more questions. Do you want to add something? I'll just say that I forgot to mention, but this quarantine just forced me not to plan things, because I'm not from the States, I'm from Bulgaria. So every year I go to see my family. And this year was kind of a big shock and not to go. And that relates to the mental health. But I think for me, it was more changing my perspective, how I see things, and not plan. Because as Noran knows, I need everything to be planned and organized to every detail. And so it just forced me to not plan so much. And so what the future holds, I'm not really sure, but I decided not to plan and take it day by day. And just be confident that we'll figure it out. We're a strong team at QPTV, and we'll figure it out. We have each other. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a great idea. I'm the same way. I mean, I'm like you. You know, as you can see from emails from about this show that we've discussed, I'm always trying to plan everything out. You know, it's a good thing to sort of you know, lay back a little bit and just try to let things happen. And you know,
yeah,
I think we're all strong. Hopefully, you know, we can all get through all this, and we'll be, if we want to take something positive from this sort of horrible experience, that we'll be better for it when we come out the other side, hopefully.
I just hope we go back before the heat wave, or when it's hot. You see, that is one challenge from home, interviewing people. It's already hot and you cannot turn the AC on, and it's, you know, that's one thing we need to figure it out. But you see, we're figuring things out.
Yep, for sure.
With that being said, that's it for today's show, and thank you for everyone watching. We'll send on an email the replay, a link to the replay where you can see it, and probably cut it to bits and pieces of our golden nuggets and post that on social media. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.